Just come on in, we'll make a half circle. Hi everyone, welcome to the Horse Handling Clinic, our third annual, in advance of the Sally B. Wheeler, which starts tomorrow, hosted by Blenheim. And here today, I'm Traci Brooks, this is Carleton Brooks, and Sue Lightner. So Carleton and Sue have both judged this class in the past, the Sally B. Wheeler. So you're going to get some great input from them, from the judge's perspective. And what we're going to do is we are going to have you all walk the triangle, just like they do in the class. And then we'll have you do it probably a second time where we'll give you tips and pointers and see if you have any questions. We'll get going. Anybody want to say something?
Let's talk about safety. First thing I suggest to everybody do if they have young horses, tie their reins in a knot by the buckle. Any horse that's a little unruly or you don't know, you always tie them in knot right up by the buckle, not that far up, real close to the buckle. Yep, Jamie has it right here. You have it. That way if your horse pulls back, they only pull back as far as the buckle. When we show our young horses, we have extra long reins made for all of them, for our bridles, just so we can control them better. Safety's an issue. No matter who's judging, if your horse is acting up or someone's horse is acting up and you are posing your horse, you can move out of the line. Every judge will give you time to set it up again because safety is such an issue these days. So you have to remember safety.
And I think we should talk a little bit about presentation of your horses. Obviously, it goes without saying that they should be clean, and braided mane and tail is very traditional. I notice on some of these, and of course he's not really prepared for this, but I notice his long whiskers. How do you feel about that, Carleton? Most judges, I think you'll find in the hunters and conformation, like to have the nose hairs shaved. I know it's becoming more and more popular now not to do that. And in this case, of course, he's not typically an in-hand horse, but that's something that we look at, carefully trimmed fetlock and pastern areas. Those are all part of it. For turnout, in terms of what you use on these horses, I, like Carleton, am very traditional. I'm not a big fan of these giant padded bridles that with all the buckles all over the place. I like a very basic, plain leather bridle. I think for most horses, a little thicker noseband just looks more attractive to me. But again, a flat one. And little things to notice about the way your bridle fits. Most horses, and the cavesson noseband should be fitted so it's actually right between the eye and the nostril. Some horses that are a little bit long in this part of their nose, you can actually enhance them by raising the noseband slightly because it will give the illusion that their nose is not quite so long. Does that make sense? And another thing I think to look at, this horse's throat latch is fine, but nowadays a lot of the grooms will hook the throat latch so that it hangs down here. On a conformation horse, that's just not very attractive. For me, I'd have it up another hole. That's just me. And I'd have my noseband a hole or two higher on that particular horse. The chestnut horse also, I think, would be much more attractive if the noseband were higher, closer to his eyeballs. It would just make her head look a little more attractive.
Thanks, Sue.
Let's get to the triangle. Let's get it going. Part of what we always say too about the presentation is you walk with purpose, and you want your horse to be bright and alert. You can walk a circle at any time before you go just to prepare, but you want your horse to you want it to stand across the ground in a way that it feels a little bit puffed up, like it's alert. You don't want them to be sort of dead. Obviously, you don't want them to be wild either, but it's about the presentation. There is some show in it, so we'll work on that too. Yeah.
Okay, to do the triangle, you'll bring your horse this direction. You want to do it over there? Like, okay, you're going to bring the horse over here, stand it, set it up the way you want to be observed by the judges, where Sue is, and then you're going to walk off that direction, which is counterclockwise, and then you turn and you walk briskly. Actually, you trot it. Oh, we're going to trot it? Yeah, that's right. We trot that side, the long side, then you pause, and then you walk the short side, and then you re-stand them. Who wants to be the guinea pig and go first? All right, Summer. Now remember, the whole time you're in the arena, the judges are judging your horse, whether you're actually setting it up for the judge or not.
What we recommend also, and we say this to everyone who does any sort of handling or modeling, is putting one rein in each hand. And also, a horse that has good conformation is very likely to come and just stand up on its own. You could give it a chance. Just give her a second to just settle. And sometimes once they settle, then they're standing squarely, and then you can place them going from there. Put one rein in each hand as you stand her. It's okay. They're young horses. Just take your time. It's fine. There's a tractor. There's noise, distractions. Don't worry about it. As you face her, there you go. Just put one rein in each hand. That's it. And then just see where she ends up. Just take a breath. Sometimes if you just take a breath, they'll just start to settle in. It doesn't have to be perfect. What the judges don't want to see, and Sue, correct me if I'm wrong, is they don't want to see you messing with it too much.
Yeah, I think the thing to keep in mind is always, if you have an idea of correctness, the one thing that you want to be aware of when you're standing a horse up is don't let them stand with the front legs straddled this way or one foot sort of cocked. Whether they're perfectly together is not necessarily important. And I think for most horses actually, their hocks come in just a little bit or ever so slightly cow-hocked. It's almost always an advantage to let them stand a little uneven behind. But the main thing is to just get them in a stance where they kind of have all four legs under them rather than one pointing out way out here.
All right, Summer, do me a favor before we start. Walk a circle to the right and stand her up coming off a right turn. And stop on the right side of her and ask her to pause before you even try to stand her up. Let's see if she doesn't improve. Stand on this side, other side of her. There you go. Now do it once more, but walk on that side of her. See, what we're trying to do is get this horse to stand square in front. It tends to have a little conformation issue, and if she stands on that side of it, the other leg will follow, and she'll end up standing square in front. Yep. This is good enough. See, she's standing square. That's right. All right, let's practice the walk. Walk down, pause, trot up the side, pause, and walk back briskly toward us.
I'll stand in the middle in case you want to grab this. And this is obviously something that can be practiced at home and should be practiced at home. You don't want to just spring this on the horses when they get to the horse show, especially the babies. This horse competed last year, so she knows it. And Summer, if you're comfortable, just like you stood her from the other side, you can also lead her from the other side if that feels comfortable to you. You don't have to lead her from the left.
I think the practice at home is a big part of this, to be perfectly honest, because you can get these horses pretty savvy about putting those front feet where you want them if you just play a little bit each day. And every time they get the feet in position, you reward them and you stop. And you do it a little each day until pretty soon they will come and stand and put them where you want, which obviously is an advantage the more you practice, because you get to the horse show and they're all going to be a little wide-eyed. So the more you've instilled good habits, the bigger advantage you're going to have.
And this horse, you can see just in the time that it's been here, she's settled in quite a bit. Now she's standing nicely. What you want to think about is when they feel like they're going to stand and they're going to stay in one place a little bit and they're where you would like them, maybe step a little away from her, Summer, just so that when we see the picture, the hard thing is that's what happens. When you step away, sometimes they'll go with you. So maybe just put your hand out as you step away, but just so the judges can see the whole horse. You don't want to block the head, especially. She has such a pretty head and such a nice expression. There you go. And then see if you can get her to stand on that hind foot a little bit. Oh, he wants this.
All right, that was pretty good. I'd like to see when you walk away, because that's our first judgment of the walk. It's a very direct line, so you have to have a focal point. You put their nose on a focal point, and you make sure they're direct. If you turn around and look at your tracks, looks like you had a cocktail this morning already. All right, we're going to do it again. So take your time. The main thing that Traci and Sue pointed out is you notice the second time the horse came to position itself for the judges to observe it, it stood quite well. The first time, the judges are getting an overview of the horse and its conformation. Then they're going to watch it do this exercise. Then you stand it up, and that's when they judge it posing. That's the main percentage part of the pose. Not the first time. Don't panic about the first time. Pretty good there. Now you're going to stand it up again, and this is when the judges are going to do their percentages on the actual conformation.
Oh, that's much better already. Good job. That looks great.
It's a good thing as a handler to think about things like when the judge is looking at the horse from behind or from in front, stand off to one side or the other. It doesn't matter which side, but you don't want to add an additional set of legs to the four the judge is trying to see, if that makes sense.
Exactly. You want to always think about trying to be invisible and somewhat out of the picture. That looks great, Summer. Yeah. All right. Next. Mariah?
Come on, Mariah.
Who's coming? Okay. Now you've already got us with the slow walk. So start to wake it up, act like you really are excited to be here. You're excited to show off your horse. Mariah's good at this. She does this with ponies, so she should know how to do this.
Ooh, pretty good.
Yeah, very good.
That's something what Mariah just did with that little bit of dirt, teasing the horse a bit, it's great. And you're not going to be scored down for that. Anything to get the horse's expression. I even went to lengths of going to the pet store and buying little squeaky cat toys when I would show my babies in hand just to get their attention.
Yes, for sure. And a lot of times you'll see people try to go with the dirt, but then they end up throwing the dirt at the horse. That's not what we're going for.
Or the judge.
Or the judge, exactly. Okay, off you go to your triangle. Good job. Head up. You want to keep your head up. Just like Carleton said, you should have a focal point. When you're leading your horse, you want to look to where you're ending up and walk with purpose. So you need to walk probably 3 times the speed that you're walking. So put some energy into it. Start to wake it up.
Yeah, and I think what Traci said, and even if you're nervous, remember it's a show. You got to be on stage. Act like you think it's the best horse in the world.
Good. Same thing at the trot. We want really forwards. You want to show how well your horse moves, how fluidly it moves. So you want to put some energy into that as well. Keep walking. Keep walking. If you walk with a little bit of energy, when your horse stops to stand, its balance is going to come up, and then it's going to actually stand better and more squarely and with a little bit of energy in the stance. You don't want it to stand and just be dead. You want it to have a little life in it. Good job.
Good job, Mariah. Okay, Mariah. Now, what you're going to do is walk a circle to the left, tight circle to the left, and stand him up again. Right around. It's like you're going to walk to his shoulder and just spin him right around. Okay, now you have to realize you can place their front feet if you're holding both reins. If you're holding both reins, you can place each front foot and direct them. There. You can direct each front foot. Watch this, Mariah. I'm going to make this horse almost turn there. See now he stands better?
Yes.
That's the key. You have to learn. That's why Traci mentioned to Summer to hold each rein in each hand, because your shoulders are going to control their shoulders. Your hands are going to control their feet when you're posing a horse. And how erect you stand will help create the balance too. So if you walk in all shy and dragging your toes, your horse's balance is going to go down and it's going to create a poor impression. Okay? All right, let's try the next. You want to do it again, or are you all good? Okay, next one.
You mentioned about if your horse toes in or toes out. If your horse has a conformational issue or defect that you know of, which many of them do, you can figure out a way to stand it to make that less visible. Again, remember, they don't have to stand perfectly straight on a straight line. You can put the shoulders to one side or the other. You can put the hips to one side or the other. You can make one hind leg, if they have a hind leg that doesn't stand as well, you could put that underneath the horse, covered by the tail, anything like that. There are a lot of little tips and tricks. So if anyone has any questions about their specific horse, we can address that as well. We might say your horse, when it stops, stands a little narrow in the front. So maybe we can work on how to stop with a little wider stance. Want to do that?
Pretty good though.
Yeah.
Ellen, walk it up so that it comes with this hind leg one more step.
Here, they should hear you.
There you go. There you go. We had him set so wide behind. I just asked her to step it forward. Now every leg nothing is parallel with the other leg, but it's standing flat and square. So I prefer to do that as a judge lots of times. When I have a good model horse, I always try to sand him a little split in front, because that way I can prove there's nothing on him. Nothing wrong with him. I'm not trying to hide a thing. Seeing how she moved to the other side when I walked to this side, that's what you're supposed to do. So the judge has a clear view of the horse. Then I look at the proportions. I like the head and neck the longest, the middle a little shorter than the head and neck, and then the hind end the shortest of the three sections. I like to see each set of legs be able to hold up half the horse. The hind legs should be able to hold up the back half of the horse by themselves, and the front legs should be able to hold up the front end of the horse by itself. The head and neck balances the coffee table. I call it the coffee table stance. All right, Ellen, let's give it a walk and see what we got.
That's the other thing. I know some of this was last minute today, but we advise for any time you're doing handling or modeling, you should probably just have a stick in case you need it. Oh, that's good. Bath is good. And a lot of times the judge, if you have a horse that won't jog, a lot of times the judges are happy to come and help you. So don't panic about that either. If you start a little further back, you get a little bit of a running start. The other thing we don't like to see is when people turn and try to turn and jog at the same time. Take your time, wait until you're on the straightaway, and then begin to jog. That's it. That's okay. This is something that we can practice at home, right? There you go. I bet it'll be better the next time.
I've always learned, too, that if you look at the horse when you're trying to get him to jog, it's very difficult because most horses instinctively, when we turn and face them, stop. So, I've found great success in pretending like I'm jogging in place, clucking, and then starting to move forward and let the horse kind of catch on and catch up to me.
Yeah. Good. That looks great. Sometimes we talk about stopping the hind end first, so the hind end is a little more under. If you think about stopping a little bit with the head up, the hind end will kind of scoop under, and you won't have that effect of where your horse feels a little strung out when he stops. Especially a horse that's quiet will sometimes stop a little bit leaning on its front end or a little strung out. So you kind of walk forward, get the hind end under, lift a little as you stop, and then you can position the front as they stop. That looks super.
Would you like to do it again? We'll help you. Do the walk.
We'll practice the jog.
Very, very military-like. I use the word military walk.
Yeah, that's good.
The way I describe the walk and the trot is military. Definite rhythm, firm feet on the ground, purpose, almost a march, but we don't want that kind of way of going. We want a smooth, flowing way of going, but with the same type of purpose.
She might need you. So funny. It's so funny. Well, right? If he's not used to jogging. Yeah. If they're not used to jogging, it definitely takes some practice. And then if you think you're going to have an issue with your horse walking forward or jogging before it's your turn, you definitely want to make sure you're walking some circles and waking up. That's better already. Nice. And then try to stand him again where you walk forward and you think about stopping the hind end first with the head up a little, and we'll see if we can get it boxed together a little bit. That's it.
He's got the stand.
Yeah,
We got
good
it.
job.
Very good job.
A lot better the third time than the first. A lot better every time.
That's normal.
Yeah.
That's very common. Good? All righty. Here comes Jamie Saylor.
We have some shiny horses. That's good.
Yeah.
Now see, even though she's coming to stand her horse up, we're already judging it. every inch of the way.
Yeah, and what Jamie just did when she led her horse and she had to pull him a slight bit, she realized that when she stopped, the bit had flipped over in his mouth. That's something you always want to check.
Wow, very good to stand him up this tall drink of water here. When I judge a horse, I like to stand back. I look at the whole class lined up. Then, when I walk around a horse, I look to see if their head has a regal look to it. Their heads have to have a regal look to it. Then I look for the balance, front to back. Then I look from the head and neck, how it meets the shoulder, how it fits into the shoulder. Then I start to look for conformation. Most people say, oh, it's got a splint. Well, it still might be the best horse out there. A lot of splints are man-made. They aren't conformation faults. So do you count a splint off the same for a conformation splint, which means the horse's bench kneed, he popped a splint below the knee, or maybe he popped a splint by kicking his shin at a fly, and he had a sharp shoe on, and no one caught it. There's different times the conformation errors. Everybody has to take things into consideration. That's why it's a subjective sport. Does he have a rough hock because he just shipped down and the van laid on the brakes and he bashed his hocks against the wall the night before? Or does he have a rough hock because he has a conformation error or a soundness issue? Those type of things are very important to take into consideration. Usually you can tell which is which. Jamie, you ready? Let's do it.
Carleton's ready with that orange hat.
You'll see some horses as they walk and horses of all ages, as you stand behind them and they walk off, they'll sometimes twist one or both hocks a little bit. And again, that can be something that's conformational or that can be something that's man-made. So that's left to the judge's discretion as well. You want the horse to travel straight. You want it to land flat on all 4 feet. Ideally, you do not want it to land and put its foot down and twist it. So the first thing that we do if we have a horse that's doing that is we go to our shoer and we say, oh, maybe this horse is a little high on the inside. Maybe we drop it on the inside and it might not do that. If we do it like that, if it's not fixed with shoeing, then we keep going down the list. And some horses, we have a lot of horses that's the way they go. They're sound and we end up just leaving it alone. So that's an individual answer for each horse. That looks great, Jamie. This horse has such a nice expression, and he's very shiny. Yeah.
Christine, come on down. Thank you, Jamie. That was an excellent presentation.
Okay, Christine's been here before. She knows the drill. When you hold one rein in each hand, sometimes you'll have a little more control if you hold a little closer to the bit. There you go. Then you'll feel like you can really control the front end of it. That's it. There you go. And then just lift. If you lift the head, she'll put some weight on that left hind a little bit because you just want to make sure that they're standing down on all 4 feet. Sometimes it's a function of the footing too, if they're on a little high spot in the ring. So maybe just walk her up 1 step. There you go. There you go.
Yeah, the footing in the ring is something to pay attention to because if your horse stands on a clump of dirt or whatever, it can give the illusion of a less than straight limb. So that's something to pay attention to when you're handling your horses. Obviously, the judge can only judge what's right in front of him or her. So we can't make the decision that it's a dirt clod. We have to decide whether it's correct or not correct. So anything you can do to make that horse stand more correctly is to your advantage. So do pay attention to that, and don't be afraid to move your horse forward or backward if it's standing in a hole or standing on a dirt clod. The judge isn't going to fault you for that. In fact, is going to thank you for making the decision easier.
So Christine's going to do this triangle. Then we're going to stand him up as a regular model class. Just so we know. And then we're going to have a little question and answer. So Christine, let's do our little walk and jog.
Maybe you might want to take this horse sort of doing horse handling versus confirmation.
We're doing horse handling and presentation, not really confirmation. We're not here to constructively tear apart anyone's horse. You all right? You all right? It'll go. There we go. Really good. Very loose horse.
If you feel them start to pause as you jog like this horse did, instead of feeling like, oh no, my horse isn't coming. If you just take a breath and just kind of give it a second, your horse will do the same and continue to follow you. So don't panic. Yeah, and then lift a little. There you go. There you go. Sometimes if you lift the head, you'll put the weight on the hind end a bit.
Yeah, anytime you back your horse up when you're presenting it, even a racehorse at the sale, I always lifted their head and backed them up so the hind end came up underneath them more. I always tried to get the hind end close to their bit. That's what I call it. Get the hind end close to the bit. All right, would you like to do this once more for us, please?
Think about, Christine, when you jog this time, when you feel your horse start to hesitate, instead of looking at her, give a cluck and keep looking where you're going. Precisely. There you go.
Good.
I love the way Christine's walking, you guys. She's walking like she's going somewhere. And that's often, we forget that when we're handling them. It's so important to have a presentation, to have a purpose. It gets the horse a little more animated.
Yeah, that looks great. That looks good job. Again, a lot better the third time.
Okay, very good. Now let's line them up like a model class. Head to tail as they speak on this side over here, maybe kind of close to these two plants. I'm going to give you a little secret. So in the old days, we had a ringmaster, told us where to line up, how to line up, everything. Nowadays, they send you in the ring and you wing it. So I'm one that always believes stand uphill. You stand uphill, the horse doesn't fall over his front end. You want balance to be up, bright, up. I always try to go to the first of the line or the very end of the line. Yep. I would go that way. This ring drops 3.5 feet from that end there to this end here. So that's a big grade.
Also, you guys, leave some space. Don't forget your judge has to walk between these horses. And with young horses, you never know when they might get mad at somebody behind them.
So I've learned to respect the judges that stand back and look at the whole group before they walk up. Usually they really have a good key for what they're looking for. Now, we're not going to move you in order or anything. We're just going to look at the group and have you jog in a straight line once and then restand. So you also, before you bring a horse to a competition, you want them to learn to stand and have someone else walk around them and maybe slap their clipboard, a notepad, a legal pad on the thing, walk up to them and they don't reach out looking for a treat. Nothing irritates a judge more than that. So the judge will just walk around. He's got to check your number. I always look in their eyes. They don't fault them now for a spot in their eye, but if it's a confirmation class, that's a confirmation error. So subjectively, I take off a great deal for it.
Notice Jamie, when Carleton was walking around, she does a beautiful job of changing sides to always make sure there's nothing between the judge and her horse. Traci's just taking a moment here to help Mariah stand her horse up. Her horse was standing sort of in another state with its hind end, and she's trying to get the forelegs a little closer together. Part of that affects exactly what Carleton was talking about, which is standing back and looking at the whole picture. And we don't want these horses to be front legs way in front of the hind. We'd like the sense that there's a leg at each corner, so to speak. Traci's talking about sometimes standing a horse up by backing him up a couple steps will help keep the hind end underneath him.
And sometimes back and then forward, actually.
Sometimes in handling these horses, you have to decide what works better for each individual. Some will set up better backing up, and some by stepping forward, and some a combination of the two.
So when you play with her at home, when you go to stop her and stuff, just try to stop her bringing that right hand limb and just get her. They get one-sided, just like we do. So they get used to doing it a certain way, so they keep doing it that way.
Okay, I think the man wants the...
Summer's horses improved 150%. Just with time.
Carleton was mentioning how Summer's horse has improved greatly just in this little spell working here today. And it just shows to go that the more you practice and handle these horses, the better. Though I will say, a little practice each day beats trying to get it all done in one day. They get bored, they get tired. You've got to keep it interesting for the horses.
Jog again or call it quits?
Let's see if anyone has questions.
They do. Let's all come over.
Come on back in a semicircle and we'll see if we can entertain some questions. Would you like this back, sir?
Well, you can answer first.
Okay, thanks.
Talk about like your horse has a specific confirmation.
Come on in here. Go get kids. Come on in.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. He's not a confirmation.
Yeah.
Do you want to head aside?
Yeah. Jamie mentioned that Carleton was having her stand her horse a certain way because he's a big horse and he's big in the front. And he's got a big, pretty shoulder and a high wither, which makes him kind of slope off a little bit behind. So a horse like that, in order to make him look more symmetrical, you would want him to stand with his hips underneath him a little bit more so his butt looks a little higher. So that's what we worked on with Jamie. So that's where we get into confirmation more than handling. Christine, your horse doesn't like to put a lot of weight on her right hind leg. So we worked on having her stop with that right hind leg underneath her. So if anyone has any specific questions like that or any other questions, let us know.
Jamie has one. Hang on.
I know we talked about the bridle, but does it matter what bit you show them in? Is it D-ring better or
Well, Sue, Traci, we're all traditionalists here.
D-ring?
We happen to have sewn-in snaffle bridles. We have 3 Ds and a full cheek, which fits a very specific type of head. They're all sewn in. They all have a wide noseband, brow band, and we change the nose bands and the brow bands to fit them. We never show them in a rubber snaffle. Rubber snaffle, they're supposed to chew or suck on. Metal bit. The size of the D-ring makes a difference. Also, you can use a pony D sometimes because their head is typey. So that does make a big difference. Anybody want to add to that?
What do you mean sewn in? I have just a quick question. You mean no buckles?
There's no buckles here on the cheek piece, and there's no buckles on the reins. The old traditional hunt bridles. Originally, they had flat nosebands and flat brow bands. We've obviously moved up a little bit, but still sewn in. They're only used for the model class or in-hand classes, never used on a competition horse.
I think what Carleton said about the bit size is really important because yearlings, for the most part, have very small heads. And I always showed mine in a pony D, particularly if it was a pretty-headed baby. I mean, once in a while, you're going to have a big-headed kid that a small bit would only exaggerate that. So those are things to take into account.
Also, making sure your bit is shined. That's huge. And we do that with all of our model bridles before every model and all of our bits in general. Every week before they go to the horse show, they get shined.
Who has a question? Here we go. Ellen Gates.
So, on the conformation horse, how far, where do you put on the conformation horse, about where would you put the club-footed horse in the scale of good to bad, I guess?
Well, is it really club-footed or upright or poorly shod? And how many are in the class? It's all relative. How well did it jog? How well did it walk? There's some horses that are club-footed win races. Grand Prix horse, there's an odd one that has a club foot. More an upright foot than a true club foot, because true club foot, as far as my understanding is a contracted heel also. So you have to look at a horse, does he have upright feet or club feet? Especially in the Arab sport horse world, you have a lot of upright feet but not club feet.
And then as far as the hooves matching, right?
Yeah, lots of times 2 upright feet will be one that has an upright foot and a wide splayed foot, obviously, because that horse is going one direction, one way of going, and one way of going the other direction. So there's no symmetry to it. Symmetry is a big part of your walk and your jog. Not just movement, but symmetry from the hind end to the front. A lot of people judge just the front end. It actually, you need to judge the hind end and then the front end being symmetrical with the hind end.
Mariah.
Mariah, your turn. Hang on.
I noticed that a lot of people, like handlers, swing their crop when they're jogging. Like, how would that be marked down, or what's your stance on that?
Are they swinging it because they're trying to use it to keep their balance like I do instead of falling on my face, or?
Like when you're jogging, if you just don't think about it, like if your crop swings.
If it doesn't distract from the picture, I don't believe it's a big deal. How about you, Sue?
I wouldn't care. And in fact, sometimes it is a little bit behind you. I felt like if I had that much more, I could have done
Yeah, Sue had a good point. Sometimes she carries the stick like this, and we've taught the horse to get away from us, especially the hind end, so we don't get run over, and creates the motion she wants. And you can fake a rhythm with your stick. You have a horse that doesn't trot the best, you can swing that stick, and you can distract a lot of judges. Who else? More questions. Come on. Christine. Jamie has a lot. She's a good asker. She wants to learn.
Are you allowed to touch the horse at all when you're on the triangle? Like if you need to.
Oh, absolutely.
Or
Absolutely.
no problem.
You're the handler. Comes back to safety.
Right.
And your presentation, what it takes to present them, as long as it's not in the rule book as illegal, do it. Now, some judges may take offense to it, but that's that judge's personal opinion. But I've reached up and smacked one in the neck as I'm jogging it before because he was climbing on me.
We should talk about that. We should talk about that, touching the horse. If you feed your horse a lot of treats and pet it a lot in the face and you walk it into the handling class and you expect it to not climb all over you, I don't know that that's going to happen, right? So it takes some preparation starting at home and how you handle the horse and how everyone handles and treats the horse. If you want it to stand politely, you got to start practicing that at home. We don't hand feed our horses for that reason. Yeah.
We never touch their face except to clip them. We never touch their face, especially the conformation horses. We never touch their face. We don't let anybody bring their hand up to their face. When I put that hand up there, I can draw their nose anywhere I want. If you touch them over time, pretty soon they're doing that and you've lost them. From the day they walk in the barn, we don't touch their face.
That's funny that Carleton said that because I spent a lot of time with my babies teaching them to reach for my hand. And that was the only time. Like he said, no treats, none of that. But to this day, I can meet one of them that's 6 and 7 years old and I can ask them to stand up and do this and there they are.
Yep, it takes to do a presentation horse, so a conformation horse, in-hand horse, showmanship. We have BES showmanship amateur handler class, which everyone should do. You have to think about it as discipline. You can take her out. Let Doug take her. Come on back, though. Let Doug take her. You have to think, they have to stand disciplined. It's a performance. They have to be able to fake it to make it. They don't want to stop. They want to pee. You can't let them pee. Or you got to take them away, let them pee, bring them back, stand them up again. Every judge understands a horse is going to go to the bathroom. But you have to teach them how to carry themselves, even if they are thinking about it. And you do that every day, not just the day they don't stop to go to the bathroom when you're jogging. The European style, that doesn't cut it over here. Those things, it's discipline, 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 and constant, consistent routine. Consistent routine. That's the word of the day, the 2 words of the day.
I think if nobody has questions, I think we're adjourned. Are we good? Thank you so much, everybody, for coming. You all did a great job.
Thank you. Thank you for participating.